welcome to another episode here on the Wharfs Rebellion Explorer. We are at the Cemetery of Wels, which was created in 1886. At the time, that would have been at the edge of town. The town is behind you, where the camera is. And as a historian, I love cemeteries. There's so many things to explore, and the first time I came here, almost a year ago, it was very interesting to kind of learn about certain aspects of the history of the city that I had never thought about, that I had not known, and the cemetery sort of gave the avenue to learn more about it. So in parts, that's what I love about cemeteries. They're also great to kind of explore a little bit of like yeah, you have certain sections, but there's hidden in the other parts of the cemetery also really great materials. This is probably the intro for at least 2 videos, I would think. So bear with me on that. And I'm not sure how much I will be talking in there. It is Sunday morning, one of my last days here in the city of Wels before we move to North Germany. But most people should be in church. But there's also the tradition of going to the cemetery on Sunday, so I'm not sure how crowded it will be in there. So we'll just see. Potentially we'll do a little bit of studio voice overlay. But we'll see. Let's go in there and explore the cemetery. We are at the first stop that I want to go to with you guys. And that is a very typical thing for a cemetery. Let me turn the camera around so you get to see it as well. We'll come back to explore this monument in a second a little bit more. So first thing is we're going to go over here to this one. You already see the birds there with the 2 heads and a very monotone section for a cemetery that usually is very individualized. So this is a monument to those, first thing up there, who died in the First World War that were stationed here. And then on the bottom, probably sort of a later addition to this, we have the addition of the Second World War. So let's walk around it and explore. Right, there's a 2-headed eagle up there. And then here we have lots and lots of engraved names. And we have more over here. A lot more names, right? So there's still a little bit of, I suppose, family ties here, because we do see a candle there. And there's a candle over there as well. Hard, I cannot even in person read what's on this. It is some form of monument here. Right, here we're back at the first monument. And it's probably really hard to see with the sun right now. But it basically says that this is honored to those who didn't return with regard to an artillery organization. We got the artillery emblem right there. And then you have some of its members right here. And that was part of it. Again, I'm not 100% sure what we're looking at here, because these are obviously members of an organization that died but are not war casualties. When we look at each of these crosses, includes the names of like 3 individuals. So you kind of see that you have like colonels there at the top, an infantry soldier, 2 of them being First World War and the colonel being in the Second World War. And it's like literally every one of these crosses includes that. I'm not going to go over through all of these. They all have like this little cute bit of leaf down here. So there's hundreds of men here that are buried and remembered. In most cases it looks like the top one, the last one is the Second World War soldier officer, and then 2 members of the First World War here. There's one more monument down there that I'm going to go to with you. Okay, so here we are at that second monument now. And this commemorates, as you can see, 6 individuals. Yeah, it looks like 6 from the First World War. And they're part of what they call the Hessenbund, which is like a regiment, Hessen, whose base is right up north of here. So this is a very kind of personalized monument for like the unit stationed here in town. Stop number 2. We got a big cross here. And then our signage. So this is where the city buried 154 individuals who died during Allied bombing raids on the city. It's sad to see the candles there toppled over. Probably wind or a rodent or something. But very much like the other part, you kind of see names engraved on all of these, and you kind of get a good sense here. 25 December 1944 is one. There's a 30th of May 1944 that a lot of people died in. Like I would say, based on what I'm seeing here, is a vast majority. There's another one on 5th of May and the 11th of April that died, and all of them are very similar to the soldiers section here, remembered with just this very basic cross, a plaque. In some cases you have more than one person being buried, and they're resting here as sort of a reminder of that very terrible time during the Second World War, when the civilian population here in the city became victim to those bombs dropped on infrastructure, but as well as the city here. I'm not sure how much people actually realize this. Yes, we saw those 2 candles, but it is sort of, when you look around, this is the graves of some members of a religious order here in front of us, and then the entire section, front, center, all around, is sort of closed away by graves that are in front of it and around it. So I'm not 100% sure how much the community still realizes what is back here. I obviously immediately realized it because I was like, ooh, wait a minute, this is interesting. Why is there a large number of crosses? Oh, there's actually somebody put a candle, so there's still relatives that occasionally, I guess, come here to commemorate. So that's very nice. Let's see what's there. Yeah, okay, so this is he died in May, the May 30th raid here. Yeah, so family still honors them. Alright. Very sobering. Alright, there's at least one more war-related section that I want to go to with you guys. Okay, I'm gonna be discreet here. There's more people now out there, but one thing with regard to the World War pieces that I've shown you so far is that as you walk through the cemetery, you also find a lot of places where it's sort of hidden on gravestones. And this is one of the examples. It's gonna be a little weird for me to go in this, but let me turn the camera around and show you what I mean. So this is a family cemetery site. And down there is this guy, Rudolf Thaler. And he died in 1944 in the Alsace. And he's labeled, it was a military rank. So that's interesting, right? Like we have here a person that died in Alsace in 1944, which means he's probably a soldier in the Second World War. He's a soldier, so never mind that. He probably fought the Allies in 44 in that region, and is buried not in the soldiers section, but is buried over here. So there's all these fun stories where you're kind of like I'm not diving into the family genealogy here because that's very intrusive, but it is rather interesting to kind of think about that and consider all these like challenges, right? Of like, do you want your family member to be buried over there with all the other soldiers, or do you want it in your family plot? And like, what's the implications of that? Were you tied in some form to the Nazis that your family doesn't want to acknowledge? But that brings us to the last section of the Second World War, parts of the cemetery. So let me turn the camera around one more time to show you. Ooh, haven't we seen that before, right? There is another cross, metal cross, that looks exactly like the one over where the bombing victims are. I would say actually it's the same height and everything, but in this case we're not looking at the victims of bombing, but here we're looking at 136 refugees from the Second World War period. So if you don't know anything about the aftermath in Europe of the Second World War, a lot of people, family of mine included, fled away from the advancing Soviet armies and tried to seek refuge further west. And just like in the other section here, we are again looking at like all these crosses with names, and like your first one here is a December 1940. I see a 41 over there. So I'm not sure how they classify refugees here. Like, if definitely the 1946, that is a like fleeing from the kind of emerging Soviet Eastern Bloc refugee, but there's a lot of 1941s here that you can see. And again, when you look at it, there's an entry point over there, but the main entry point is right there. I'm not sure how much people, despite that one candle over there, still realize what's in here. You know? Like, do people recognize that this is a, like, in many ways, monument to people who fled died in Wales?